Hey, the sex symbols of wargaming are here.
Where?
Keith, I believe you're muted.
I'm muted and I need better lighting.
Well, I guess you wanted to
There we
give that nice dark, bedroom eyes type of look for the.
No. I had to reorganize my office and the lighting kind of went by the wayside.
Okay, who's got the echo going?
Not me.
It's not me. I got everything turned off.
Okay, my mic is off. So Keith, Steve, does anyone have speakers on?
Not me, no.
Headset.
Did it stop now, Jeff?
I kind of hear like a little delayed in the background.
That's what I hear in the background, but it's not coming out of my machine. Let me mute for a second. See if that stops it.
Yeah, it's you, Keith. The second you hit mute, it disappeared. You must be the pretty sex symbol because you're not as smart as the rest of us.
Let me figure.
When Keith is working on that, I'm going to say hello to everybody. Hey, Jay, how you doing, buddy? How you been? And Ron's here. Hey, Ron. Richard. All right. Dad, did you do the roundabout to make sure we're everywhere?
Yeah, Facebook's running fine. YouTube's running fine. Let me check that other place that we don't speak about very often. Twitch.
No.
We're not pretty enough to be really popular on Twitch.
Okay, it's not me because I've been muted the whole time and I've been hearing it. So.
No, we only hear it though when you unmute.
Maybe I should just be quiet this time.
Well,
you're going to force me to go open air, so hang on. Let me shift to open air here.
Okay, guys. Well, we'll start off since we obviously still don't know what we're doing.
How's that?
Most of you guys know the Kickstarter the Gamefound crowdfunding for World of Warcraft 5 will end tomorrow at 11:59, I believe, Mountain Standard Time. I don't do translations, so you guys are going to have to figure out where that is, where you live. But it's in the middle of the night, and we will be, hopefully in bed. Next, we've had a couple of guys. I want to approach something that, they said, hey, you guys did the early bird, and, we can't get it here in England because it's, late at night or whatever. So the next crowdfunding we do, which will be pretty soon, we think we're going to start it at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which would be about 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 12 noon California time. But it'll give the Europeans, I think it's about 8 o'clock at night for the Europeans. So then everyone will have a chance to jump in. Someone had suggested adding more numbers to it, but the problem is there's no way for me to do it by any type of location. It's just a time. But I think if I start it a little bit later, it'll kind of, get everybody. So, all right. So, guys, if you got questions, hey, Chet, how you doing?
Hey, Chet. Hey, Mike. Hey, all you guys. I don't want to presume because I don't know some of you, but
I'm getting hate mail already from one of them. No.
Oh, I figured it out too. It's because my phone was on and the YouTube connection connected automatically, so it was playing next to me there. Like I thought I turned my phone off. So there you go.
We all knew it was you, and it was okay.
Yeah, it's always me.
we knew you just had to figure it out.
Always, if there's a problem, it's like it's Keith's week, but it's Keith's week every week.
You're dependable.
Dependable to be the one causing the problem. Thanks.
Silver linings, Keith.
Yeah, right.
Silver linings.
Silver linings. Right.
Right. So
He's so
today's
dependable.
thing is we're going to talk about everything World at War. I am going to release a poll at the end of the crowdfunding campaign, where we're going to kind of ask everybody what they would like to see next. Now, somebody was upset because I asked them what they wanted for stretch goals, and it didn't go exactly in the order or the way that people voted, because there's a lot of things involved in that. I have to make sure that the artists or the designers, they get really upset with me when I commit them to things they have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay,
I wonder why that would be.
Yeah, I'm annoyed with the customers with you guys. You guys should just do what we want all the time. Okay, but bearing that I don't have the ability to send black helicopters yet to them, they get a stay.
He said yet, didn't he?
Yes, I did say yes. So, these are suggestions so we get an idea, as well as see if we can do what you want the way you want it. But, as you guys may know, you're all a little bit different. You all want something different. Burger King would never exist if we all got it our way, the way you guys want it. So, someone said, Keith can't be heard. Keith, can you speak?
Can I speak? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear him.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, Jeff Newell's in the house.
Jeff Newell in the house. Major Newell.
We're looking for all your suggestions. Keith's waiting for them.
I was just going over your leader counter, Major Newell.
Now, I be careful now. He's still got the digits he can change. Be careful, Jeff. Okay, he says it's all good now.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. So anyway, we're gonna put a poll up, see which ones you guys want to have next. It's not a promise or a guarantee or any of the above. It's just something we will get a good feel on. So I think we should let Jeff start, since we can test the mood of the crowd.
Sure thing. So recently I was at WBC, which is the first time since the pre-COVID anyways. And we did have the big Minden map out, 8 map sections, and we were playing the Operation Red Gauntlet scenario, which is the grand finale scenario, so to speak. So we had a great time. We had about 8 guys coming in and out and playing and everything. And we got just about through the scenario. It was taking about maybe an hour for each turn, and when you're talking about the largest size scenarios possible, I think that's pretty good. So, so we played it, during the day, each day during the week and everything. And I was trying to introduce people to the game and everything. I think everybody enjoyed it, and we had a good time with it. And it looked a little rough for NATO, but they weren't down for the count yet. So we just had a few more turns to play through if we had the time and everything on that. So for the most part, I had to play the Soviets. Everybody who came to the table seemed to want to have played NATO.
Yeah, but you like playing Warsaw Pact.
I've gotten used to playing the Warsaw Pact, so you're right about that now.
You can't see because it's off to the left. He's got the Soviet flag behind him, just a little bit to the left.
And traditionally, I like playing the bad guys on war games. So, but in any case, no, we had a great time with it. It played well, after the final tweaks and everything that we had with it and stuff. So, that I submitted that scenario, the big scenario to Keith for all the formatting and everything on that. So, it played great. We had a lot of battles in the South, and then.
Jeff doesn't hold a grudge either.
The Soviets were able to get across the bridge, and it was more of a mobile battle. But we had a real slugfest in the city. The Soviets, have 2 air assault battalions. And by the end of turn 14, I think if I remember right, they had 2 platoons left between the 2 battalions.
Yeah, when Jeff and I were testing, we ended up with it was like a bridge too far, except that there were just too many air assault troops. We're fighting them off the bridge.
On the other hand, the British infantry battalion got ground down, and I would describe that more to the fact that we had a few changes in commanders, and when you're playing there, you're not the one who wants to pull back to regroup. Nobody wanted to have their turn be the one where they regroup on that. So, no, it played well, and like I said, it was when you have a large size scenario like this, it ends up devolving and sometimes into these little different, like almost separate scenarios. With the tank battle over here, you have the infantry battle over here for the bridges. On the one side, the Soviets are trying to get across this bridge to push the British or the Americans north of the canal.
Jeff, you're really breaking up badly.
Oh,
It sounded fine on my end.
Yeah, I can hear him too. There's something weird going on because somebody said after somebody confirmed my audio on the stream that it wasn't coming through on the stream. But
so, anyways, a lot of cases it devolves into smaller battles. That they're still related. They affect the overall outcome, but it's kind of neat how sometimes you can kind of lose focus and say, okay, I got to do this. And especially when you're dealing with, limited activations and stuff like that, or air support or designated formation cards, sometimes the choices you make, can really affect that. So, artillery. There's plenty of artillery too.
Jeff is always artillery because there's always plenty. But for the large, Jeff Newell had a comment. It's like great to have another large map. I think you're really going to like this, Jeff, because there's a lot of units that it really stretches the legs of their range. We were testing this, and a lot of times helicopters, they like to sneak around the hills. There's not a lot of hills on this map, so they have to come out in the open at some point. And when you're firing, the roll-ons at full range, it's a whole different experience trying to keep them pinned down. So I think you're really going to like it.
Didn't I tell you I got rid of the roll-ons and the rapiers?
Oh, come on! No.
It's hard to get around them when they're on the hill. And they can shoot across them, even across this large-sized map.
Right. And that's one of the things is in the one game that Jeff and I were testing, I could not hit a thing. But then I think wasn't it at WBC? Didn't you say that you lost 3 or 4 platoons?
Oh yeah.
In aircraft fire.
The play test in July, when at my place, Keith couldn't hit anything with his SAM,
which is typical.
Even though the air assault troops kind of got delayed on landing, so. I think maybe did we lose even one? I'm not sure. I don't remember.
No, I didn't get anything. On the ground.
Yeah.
Once he got on the ground, I got
in the air.
But in the air, I couldn't get him.
In this last one, they lost at least a company worth in the air. And there's this open section right in the middle of the map near the bridge, the center, the bridges, and that's where the same time as the previous playtest, I sent the Soviets right there in that open area. But this time the Brits had a platoon with a javelin, and he got 4 shots off before we actually had a chance to just finally land the troops. And he did take down 2 platoons just by himself.
Wow, there you go.
We have some images Keith can talk about here. Not Keith, I'm sorry. Jeff can talk about here. Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yep. There's Britt and Sean. They're the only 2 that ever volunteered to play the Soviet side. So, and so we had that table set up. As you can see, it's all 8 maps and everything, and plenty of markers and counters and such. So, and I think we have a couple of little small detail photos as well. Yep. So that's that's close in. You see a lot of missile reload markers.
Yeah. Now, this is looking north toward Minden in the upper left there. The copper-toned city in the upper left, that's the new dense city terrain, but around it is the, just urban city hexes. So there's a lot of activity up there, but there's just a lot of infantry coming
and actually, you can't really see well. Those red units there by the city and everything in the center there up north, those are all the airborne troops in their helicopters. And then this is the center of Minden. There's the central bridge. You have the dense urban, as Keith mentioned. In this case, both the Soviets had 1 battalion east of the river and landed the other battalion west of the river. And the one that landed on the west side got ground down by those British troops. By this point, the British British battalion got ground down pretty much as well. And the Soviets just barely were able to get some reinforcements and link up with the air assault troops. And actually, you see those BTRs had to wade across the river because it was just too crowded there at the bridge. We didn't have enough space to get them in. So we had the BTRs use their amphibious capability to get across the river into those woods hexes to just to reinforce the western side of the river there.
Beats the boats they had to use at Arnhem. How do you make a bridge? Both sides at once. For fans of A Bridge Too Far.
Yeah. And this is towards the end of the play test and everything. The Germans are moving up another company of Leo 2s, which are a late reinforcement. And as you can see, the lead BTR battalion ended up taking the spearhead, the point of attack. And those disrupted units is another West German Panzer Grenadier company. So that didn't withdraw quite so quickly enough. So they kind of got ground up in ground assaults with the thing. And as you can see on the left side, you got some reinforcing American infantry coming on board.
Okay. I can load some more, Jeff, if you'd like to. You'd like me to?
Oh, yeah. One other thing. So, we have the new terrain, dense urban. So the infantry, again, they're going to get 2 dice defense. One of the things in additional terrain effects for dense urban is that vehicles lose a firepower. So, so if you place your tank in that dense urban, even if you're firing downrange outside of the city, you're going to lose 1 firepower, and that represents the density of the urbanization. And it means that you can't really effectively deploy the unit to deploy all the firepower effectively in any given direction. So so it does handicap the vehicle units a bit as well. Also, in this scenario in particular, infantry units can absorb a hit in assault combats by retreating. So they're much more resilient in this urban setting, and that's what you saw. It took a lot to grind. Granted, I said there's a lot of casualties on both sides, but it took a long time to grind them down because in a lot of cases the infantry could absorb a hit by just retreat. After they become disrupted, they could absorb a hit by retreating voluntarily, and so that preserves them a little bit. So they're more resilient.
Yeah, that one hit for new players, if there are any new players on here, sometimes you learn the hard way that in order to attack an infantry position, especially in urban, that you kind of have to do your preparation. You need to either find some indirect fire or find some tanks or something to hopefully disrupt them before you get in. And with dense urban, it's problematic because there's 1 extra hit in there that they can basically roll back and then they'll come back at you. So it really is a backup. Surprisingly, for an armor game, there's a lot of really fun and fierce infantry fights that show up when you get in the right terrain. Yeah, and it's a completely different scenario, battle that you're fighting compared to the open ground in a lot of the armor battles. Yeah, I'm wondering what those Leopard 2s were going to do once they got close to the city. Yeah, well, I told my opponent Tom, I was like, you probably want to have them kind of sit outside and wait for the Soviets come to them rather than getting engaged in the in close terrain like that. And right. then you have this. This is the southern end of the map. The Soviets, again, the orange you'll see up there is a BMP battalion, and then the darker red were some T-64 battalions. That it was basically a full T-64 regiment, and those tanks just got ground down. And the Leo 2s didn't even get onto the board at this point. It was just fire from the Milans, the Leo 1s, and such, just plinking away turn after turn. And as you can see, the Soviets ended up calling in, using the regimental and divisional artillery to lay down a lot of smoke. Yeah, I call that the Jeff Schulte special when there's like 7 hexes of smoke. it's like, look at the bridge. What bridge? I can't see it. Yeah. So, it's just that even in this far back deployment, the West Germans kind of deployed far back. At least if from a height, that's a big kill zone. The lines of sight are not quite as open as you would think because there are a bunch of cultivated hexes there. But yes, certainly units on hilltops, as you can see, those Leos where they can just shoot down into that kill zone. So
the Soviets really need to use whatever they can for cover, and the most handy option in that is the divisional artillery laying down 3 smoke screens in front. So at times, I'm sure the NATO players thought it was a bit obnoxious, but it really was the only way you can protect your troops on the advance. So.
Eventually, you have to come out of the smoke screen. The question is when.
Yeah. And here's an overview at about the same time. This is, like I said, this is probably about turn 14 or so. On the lower half is the Soviet left flank. You have the T-64 regiment really did get ground down, but it did take the bridge. And if you see in the backfield, the Soviets have a small reserve group that's moving up that can probably is going to attempt to exploit the breach.
Look at all the wrecks around the bridge. The bridge is, if you look at the number 54 in the sort of lower center left, that's roughly where the bridge is there. You can see an improved position, I think, is where the bridge actually is. But look at all the wrecks.
Yeah.
That happens every time we try and take that bridge.
At one point, I think we actually were physically running out of wreck counters.
Right.
So, but even you see in the backfield there, the NATO forces start with a Challenger company, kind of screening ahead, along with a recon company. So they're able to slow down the Soviet advance and able to take out some tanks along the way. So, and then you see in the center there, you see what we just saw a close up of with the Soviets in the city. They had the lead BTR battalion in front, and then there's a follow-up BTR company, which is right around crossing around the bridge at this point in time. And then a little bit to the north on the Soviet right, you see the orange and the yellow. That's a BMP company, which basically beat its head against a mixed task force of Americans trying to get across the river, and they just couldn't. There was just too much firepower, and they just beat to the ground, and a couple of those city hexes they were in actually ended up getting rubbled. And even with the artillery support, they just couldn't make any headway across the bridge. So, that was one of the victory conditions, to push everybody north of the Middle Land Canal, and the NATO was going to end up having a little stronghold on the south side as a bridgehead.
Hey, Jeff, Todd has a great question. He says, how long did this take to play over the weekend?
It was taking, the scenario is 20 turns. So it was taking us maybe an hour on average for a turn. In a convention setting, it's very social. We're talking about kibitzing, we're starting, stopping, and everything like that. So, but yeah, I'd say on average, if you're not trying to break any records, you're probably doing about an hour a turn, once both sides have gotten all their reinforcements on. In the early turns, there's a lot fewer forces, a lot fewer activations each turn, the first few turns. But as the turns go on, each side is pouring in reinforcements. So, once they're all on the board by about turn 8 or 9, it's about an hour per turn.
Okay. Excuse me. Jeff, why don't you, because we've had a lot of questions, talk about the campaign, and I have that.
Oh, sure.
Shiny.
So with Storm in the Gap, we had the Drive on Gießen campaign, and this time around we decided to go make it a smaller campaign. So Gießen's very large, and it can encompass 3 days. The drive on the line is going to be a smaller thing, maybe make it more playable, more accessible. So this is going to be a 1-day campaign. So you're going to have like 5 operational turns starting on this map. Another change from the Gießen campaign is we specified map configurations for each area. So to mix it up a little bit. So it uses maps from Blood and Fury and from Operation Gauntlet. So mixes it up a little bit. And so this way you're probably having maybe a dozen scenarios for the full campaign. So.
And I assume that the numbers being sideways and upside down ought to show the rotations of the different maps, Keith? Jeff?
Yeah, they're map configurations. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And the red represents what?
Okay, so the red are supposed to be major roads, and then the black are minor roads. In major roads, you're able to use road march to move farther along during an operational turn. and and they also you can bring on more formations onto the map at the start of any engagement compared to the minor roads.
Okay, and the red upside down numbers mean that they're inverted, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we did have a question that was asked in on the Gamefound comments. Is the solar system able to be used for this, and what's your opinion on that?
Well, the solar system, it would just be for the tactical battles that you have during the campaign. So the solar system's not going to help you in determining where to move your forces on the operational map.
Yeah, the campaign game's set up to be double blind.
Yeah.
So typically you want to have a second player for that as far as generating scenarios with it.
But if we get to 175,000, we are willing to adapt.
Sure thing. You got only 24 hours to do that. So.
Boy, you're going to be upset if they make it.
Just add it on the list of things to do. That's all.
Okay, so
yes, both the defensive Frankfurt module, which had the maps down in Frankfurt area, and the Minden maps really are great for a convention setting, and just in general, I enjoy the larger maps, especially when you can have multiplayer, and then you're working with your teammates and everything like that. It just makes for a wonderful experience, especially when you start arguing about who's going to get the artillery support or the reinforcements, or whatever the case may be.
I see a question that says, we did cover dense urban, but the quick summary is that dense urban is basically the same as urban, except for infantry who are retreating from assault. They can basically retreat and still be adjacent to an enemy unit.
Yeah.
Also, they have the option to retreat and mitigate one of the hits against them. And then the third thing is that vehicle units have one less die when they're firing out of a dense urban because they can't deploy fully on their front. That's the quick summary. Map like that for Arnhem and Stalingrad for nations. Oh, there you go. Campaign map, you mean, for Arnhem and Stalingrad? Oh,
I think you mean,
talk to Sean.
Yeah, 8 map section map. Yeah,
I think
send that right over to Sean.
Right.
We'll get right on it.
Send that right to Sean. Oh, I see. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to keep the rules so they're fast playing, but it turns out it really seems to portray intense city combat pretty simply, but yet with that intent, that kind of like, am I going to win thing from both sides. Yeah. Ammo crates. Oh, Jeff, I'm with you there. I totally love my ammo crates.
Yeah. It's funny, they took a long time to sell, and I took it that people just weren't interested. I like the idea because our trays are deep dish, you can hold a lot more counters. I like the fact that the trays lock because I am clumsy and drop things all the time. And I cannot tell you how many older trays, I'm not naming any names, either don't strap down or just fly off when you slightly touch them. And I love the box the most because I had all these magazine games. I could stick 3 or 4 magazine games and fit those counter sheets in the rows for just one counter tray. We are considering making some new ones, believe it or not. They pretty much might be very much the same, but we're looking, believe it or not.
Dave, you just went mute.
Yeah, we lost sound on you, David.
Dev, stop that.
It's not my fault. Can't blame me for this one.
No one knows who's doing it. I'm sure it's
we've been having these little technical issues. It's not my YouTube this time.
It's Gremlins.
We are now on Skynet. I call it. So it's so we're thinking of putting Maurice Fitzgerald from what's the name of Maurice's page or show? Whiskey Charlie.
Whiskey Charlie Fox.
Put some inserts in this, you can actually add inserts into the trays. But we haven't decided whether we're going to even reprint them yet. We want to see what the response is. No, he's looking for the larger map.
Oh, the larger map for like Arnhem or Stalingrad. Yeah,
but not to miss an opportunity.
That's intriguing. Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is Stalingrad is from my understanding of what maps I remember was huge.
Yeah.
Just so long. So now you've got me intrigued. Now I got to go look. And Arnhem is one of my favorite, battles as far as battles go, but
Stalingrad was basically 12 kilometers by 4 kilometers.
Yeah. So, if you have, well, no, that's doable. I think your World War 85 map, I think, is 2 by 3 kilometers roughly. So yeah, 6 maps long. Does that sound right, Dev?
Right around there, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 6 maps long, maybe 2 maps for the other side of the river. So there you go.
All right.
Sean, we got a project for you. Is Sean on?
I did a lot of nasty texts. That's all I'm going to say.
I think he's still recovering from Point Blank, the solitaire system for Point Blank.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. This book will be out at the end of the campaign. Anyone who pledged for it will get the PDF as well as the MP3 of it. And we do have artwork if you're interested in it. I believe, what's the size, Deb? Remember, is it 19 by 24?
Yeah, it's not full poster. It's slightly under poster size. 19 by 24 sounds about right. But if I would point out that these are being printed on not paper or poster board. These are on the canvas, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are going to be very, very durable. These are going to last a long time.
I do have a poster protector that's full size, so it'll fit, which is great.
And here's the add-on for the expansion. That's the artwork from that. And I have to say, I love this guy's artwork. It's just
Raphael does a lot of really fantastic computer generated modern and World War II art.
All right.
I mean, everybody knows him. People may not know who he is, but he's got that distinctive style. And I mean, he's done work for Decision, for Compass, for us. I mean, yeah, his art is all over the place.
Okay, I want to point out before we go into more, all the stretch goals are unlocked, guys. Okay. I want to also point out that all the stretch goals won't be available afterwards, even in the late pledges, because of the way we're producing this. My goal is to produce this fast and furious, no pun intended. So it gets to you guys as quickly as possible. Okay. So all these options are been unlocked. Okay. The last 2, which is the UK and Soviet OOB reinforcements, and the winter maps for Blood and Fury and Operation Red Gauntlet, which are the winter maps, those will be only available if you order in the campaign. Some people have asked me, will they be available afterwards for a separate purchase? It depends on how much quantity I can get. Okay, so the answer is maybe. Not the best answer, but it's the truthful answer. Everything else you see is already done. I want to point out too, for the add-ons, okay, we do have the Spiral Bound book, and for the core rules and for the companion book. Now, the companion book does come, not Spiral Bound, normally in the game as does the core rules. But one of the stretch goals was we gave everyone a Spiral Bound book. And there were cheers and happiness in the town hall center. So you don't need to buy this unless you want an extra copy for a friend or somebody. So I want to point that out so you guys don't go there thinking you have to buy it. It is a stretch goal. It wasn't when we started, but it is been unlocked. Okay. I also want to. Some people ask questions about the flight stands. Now, our printer was nice enough to send me pictures of the flight stands. Now she. Just as a point to you guys, okay? She doesn't know what she's necessarily looking at, so you might see some 3-dimensional hocus pocusry here, but that's because she's just sending me it to look at.
Flying turrets, film at 11.
Now, as a commercial break here, Point Blank, the ship is in the States. The container's already off the ships. I don't know if it's on a truck yet. I'm hoping sometime tonight, maybe tomorrow, I will get an update and get a better idea if and when it will get to our warehouse, but it's already in the States. Any late pledges for that will be locked out as of tomorrow. A lockdown, should I say, because there's, again, very few copies extra left over. Okay, on Devin's game, Heroes of the Bitter Harvest, and the 2 expansions, which is Valor the 13th, which is an expansion for Heroes of the Motherland, and for Enemy at the Gates, which is an expansion for Heroes of the Bitter Harvest. Those are all, the prototypes are already in the mail. So that will be, as long as they get here. I've already seen pictures, and Debbie and I haven't found any errors via the digital imagery. And we got a lot of them.
Yeah, Amy sent us a lot of imagery that we had to pour through.
We found no problems, but until the box gets here and everything else, which we will show you guys on a show probably as soon as maybe even this week, but more likely the following week. And then it'll go to print. So again, that's going to go along very quickly, as you can see the new system we're trying to show. This picture is showing a Heroes of the Bitter Harvest map.
Actually, it's an Enemy at the Gates map.
Enemy at the Gates map. Okay.
Hey, don't be an expert.
Really.
Sorry for being pedantic.
I'll tell you, boy.
Well, the funny thing is that's an Enemy at the Gates map. Those are Heroes of the Bitter Harvest counters, and there's also a point blank counter in there with the World at War flight stand. So I don't know what Amy was thinking. So.
I'm just having this identity crisis.
No.
Let me ask a question, Devin. Let me ask you a question. Are those 1-inch X's like World War 85? Or large?
That is the standard. That is not the X map. That's the standard.
That's the standard. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at the shadow, it's looks like it's gonna like perfectly fit outside the hex. You know?
Yeah. These flight stands are huge.
On the actual map that I have other pictures of. I don't know if I put them on the screen here yet, but when I do, they look like they fit right inside the hex groove, which is exactly what Blackwell and I and Amy were shooting for.
Right. So, but I this first time I've actually seen the physical picture. I'm like, yeah, oh, there we go.
So now,
like, yeah, I got to get some helicopters in the air.
Devin's working on some rules, so you can play the Heroes of Nations at War, and you break it down into lock and load tactical, and then we're going to break it down again so you can play that point blank.
And some games have breakdown counters. David. We have breakdown games.
Lost volume on you again, David.
Yeah, you're muted.
You're muted, Dave.
Stop that, guys.
And you're muted again.
I don't know why it keeps doing that.
You're pushing a button or something.
Got your elbow on the space bar?
No, I'm not even next to the space bar.
Lean over so everybody can see just my full face, not my half of it. Not that anybody wants to see my full face.
I'm too close for that. Plus, I got my mic here. Half a face, half a face, half a face. I'll be two-face.
Oh, that has nothing to do with this. Hold on.
Tank.
Yeah, in space infantry, we have hover tanks, so you never know. They could fit on here, too.
That's true. Oh, that'd be cool. Oh, look at that.
So...
One's hover, one's flying.
Very possible. And you can see the thickness of the plexiglass we use. It's not some, it shouldn't be too thin, too delicate. Again, they're on their way here samples, so I can actually pound on them and see how they do. And I plan to send some to Jeff and Keith so they can complain why I didn't do it this way. And somebody wanted colors on the stands to show how high it was. And... yeah, not happening, guys.
No telescoping legs?
No.
I just keep having to reiterate, this is not an air game. And for the, I think I've told the story before. We did have an air game early on in development of we had air cover planes to escort the close air support, and a little mini game where you had, you could shoot down the escorts, or you could shoot down what they were escorting, and then we finally got to the point where that was way too complex. They're like, hey, I want my tanks.
Okay, Richard, tell us what we're confusing you with.
I think he was commenting on the point blank counter with the Enemy at the Gates map with the World at War stands.
Yeah.
It took us all a second to say, what is she doing? But she was just trying to show us the stands.
Right, she's just grabbing whatever counters she could find. Aha! Not a question for me.
My goal, and I really mean this is if we get all the pieces and the
You're coming through all broken up, David. It's got to be something with your internet. And we can't hear you.
Send me
Can't
an
hear
email.
you.
I'll read it.
He conveniently timed out with the.
So we're going to fulfill on blank.
Totally did it on purpose. And David will come back, and that's when it'll be be ready for release.
And that's when we plan to have it shipping.
There you go. And he's muted again.
Wow. What's going on?
It's got to be the software. Something's wrong with the software. I haven't had this problem in a while.
Talk very softly.
Yeah.
Carry a big flight stand.
Maybe I'm up too high. I'm on top of the flights. I don't know.
There you
I keep, oops.
Got to watch those roll-ons.
It's actually blaming the browser. It says the browser is dropping the audio. Whatever that means.
Have you got 10,000 windows open?
No, I don't actually.
That may be the problem.
Hmm.
Only one window open? I don't know what to do with myself.
Somebody asked if I'm sorry, there was a question about the Solitaire AI. No, we did not answer it yet. It kind of got lost in the shuffle there. The existing Solitaire cards can work. There is stuff in the Blood and Fury ones that's customized for Blood and Fury for those units to give you an enhanced experience. Also, there's additional things as we fine-tune, because we got a lot of feedback of what people wanted to see. So that things like a little clearer opportunity fire determination, a little more guidance on when is the artificial enemy opponent going to load or unload. So we kind of built that into the Blood and Fury, and that'll go in future games as well. The old one, you can always use, for opportunity fire. You can, I believe it actually says in the original solo rules, pull a card, and if it says fire, then you do your opportunity fire. As far as loading and unloading, that was more a judgment call in the early edition. But will it work? Yes. Yeah, either one will work. I because shiniest toy is the one you want to play with. I like the Blood and Fury for Blood and Fury, but you guys don't have that yet. So when you get it, you'll have to tell me. I hope that answered the question.
Oh yeah, he has the high ground. All right,
This is good ground. Good ground. Got the high ground.
that's not the high I was.
Different
talking
high
about.
ground.
we know.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
Colorado.
Yeah. I'm trying to deflect.
Rocky
Trying to
Mountain,
deflect.
Colorado.
It does work. There was a question about for the Solitaire. It does work retroactively. It's just there's going to be things. There's going to be few cards. I forget 6, 12. I'm not sure cards in the Blood and Fury deck that simply won't relate to Storming the Gap because they're specifically for, say, the British. But the ones for the Soviets will work. And I think there's an event or two, not a lot, for the West Germans. Those will work, but the British, you won't have any British in Storming the Gap, so yeah, that won't work. But other than that, it'll work.
All right, Tim D6. The goal is how fast we can get the proofs from Amy. Our goal is to get all the stuff through our guys to Amy, which we're halfway there, maybe a little more along. Okay, and then get the prototypes. Once we get the prototypes, like we're doing for Heroes of the Bitter Harvest, then we can basically give you a pretty solid date, barring Pacific storms, world wars, or anything else that may be hinder production.
Invasion of Taiwan.
Okay, now let me see here. Okay, so let's go over, just in case everyone has an idea. These are the add-ons, guys. These do not come with the game. Okay, the bottom right one, which is kind of cut off, that's the ammo crates. They're out of stock. You can't buy them from us or through the Kickstarter because we don't crowdfunding because we don't have it. We give a special for Storming the Gap. Okay, you'll have to look into that. If you'll see it, it's just if you order it here, we were just trying to give the guys who may have missed the first one The 2 spiral books are now included in the game. They were stretch goals. So unless you want an extra copy or a friend wants to have a copy when he plays with you, don't need to buy that. Storming the Gap one-piece monster map.
Ooh.
There was a lot of requests for that. It's printed on canvas. Again, click on it. There's a lot of detail of how the map is being printed in canvas. We've got nothing but rants and raves and praises about how great the map is. So it's really the same procedure. It's the same company doing it.
Yeah, the canvas maps are amazing because they stay flat.
Yeah, and I have copies here of the new ones already.
Yeah. And that's what we used on for the WBC and any other conventions we've been at.
And the canvas maps are just artwork. Okay, we put it up there because some people asked us for it. They're limited to, again, the campaign and probably late pledge, but after that, they'll be gone. Okay, Operation Red Gauntlet one-piece monster map. Okay, now that is exactly what it says. It's the one-piece map. Now, there's 8 maps here, but I believe Jeff and Keith can correct me, but we're only using 4 of them, and the 4 is for the next game to add them together. Or Jeff?
No, that was a previous iteration.
That was a previous iteration. All 8 maps are in Operation Red Gauntlet in the expansion.
Okay.
Yeah.
The canvas map is your one-piece alternative to that. Obviously, the maps that are in Operation Red Gauntlet, they're semi-geomorphic because we wanted to emphasize the internal seams for the 8 maps for this one to give it a little better feel, especially with the Vezzer running down the middle of the map. So we didn't want to have the internal seams geomorphic, but the outside seams, either a short, at a minimum a short side, but a short and a long side for the corner maps are geomorphic. So you can still, attach this to anything else you want in the World War 85 system.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to pause here, what is the Frontline Recon? Frontline Recon is to let you follow the campaign. I think it's a $2 donation. And you don't get anything, but when you move over to the what is it called, late pledge, it gives the ability to buy the product afterwards. Okay, but as we're saying now, there will be 2 items that will not come with your late pledges, which is the winter maps and the UK additional OOBs and counter sheet there, which we'll go over again in a minute. Does the canvas maps? No, there are no garments. It's clean. You could mount the map if you wanted to as a picture frame. You could put it in plexi. It's literally a piece of canvas. There's tons of images along the internet from the one from Storming the Gap, and it's the same company and the same canvas being used on both.
You want to throw one of the close-ups from Jeff's game back up? Because you were playing on the canvas map, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah, there you go, and you can see the grain in the bottom of that image, in the pale green there where the West Germans are on the hill.
Yeah.
It's delightfully flat, and it stays that way.
Well, it's not only that too. It's also textured to be waterproof. Now, I'm not saying submerge it in your tub, okay, and to see how exactly if you drop a cup of wine on it or something.
No realistic rain, okay?
Yeah.
Just use the rules.
Yeah.
Pretend.
If you shake champagne because your side won and spray the map, that's not how for it either.
And there's simply no seams. You jostle the table, the map, everything stays aligned. It's one piece.
It all moves, but everything stays in line.
Okay. And then the last one was you got the 2 artworks. You got Operation Red Gauntlet Monster Map, and you have Operation Red Gauntlet Crossing the Mighty Vaser. Okay.
I have been corrected that it's not Vezzer, which is what I grew up with. It's Vaser if you properly pronounce it. So I'm going with Vaser.
It's the map I'm going to capture.
Did I do that right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. It comes with 9 maps, I believe. Okay.
Yes.
And the scenario breakdown for that is if you click on it, it'll show you what scenarios, how many maps it's using, and what the scenario is about. If you want to more detail. Or Jeff, if you want to jump in and just tell me, because I can't easily. Well, I guess I could.
There's one separate scenario, which was the airborne right? The German airborne, I think it was.
Yeah. There's a death
Yeah.
death from above scenario is the name of the scenario.
Yeah. So and that's the map number 9 plus.
That's the ninth map. The ninth
Yep.
map. Basically, the ninth map is a regular World War 85 map, but it's not in anywhere else. So we added it in here because we put this scenario in, and it needs this map. So
And then
it's an urban area that's split into 3 areas by rivers. So it's really kind of intriguing.
Yeah. And then the other 8 maps are part of the Minden area, and we have several scenarios for that, including the large scenario that covers all 8 maps, at once. And then there's 2 scenarios that use 4 maps, and then a couple other, one other with the 2 maps, I think it was. So,
right. The 4 map ones are like a north where the infantry fight is, and a south where the more open area is. It breaks up pretty well that way. But when you're actually playing the whole game, there's a bit more crossover north and south sometimes. When somebody's like, I need armor.
All right. Now, something I want to point out is the scenarios. Okay. This expansion requires the ownership, obviously, of Blood and Fury to play scenarios 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mm-hmm. And scenario 5, it requires ownership of Blood and Fury, Storming the Gap, and the Storming the Gap expansion pack. Jeff, you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's the large one that we posted pictures on with the 8 maps. That's going to use forces from Storming the Gap and the Storming the Gap expansion, in addition to those and Blood and Fury. So, with that scenario, basically the NATO starts off with a Panzer Grenadier battalion and a British infantry, Mecha infantry battalion, plus some attachments, add-ons there, and then eventually the Soviets first come in with 2 air assault battalions, and then they're reinforced with the two regiments, one tank regiment with T-64s, and another motorized rifle regiment. So you got a lot coming on. And then both sides get reinforcements after that as well. So the Germans are coming on, some Americans coming on, and obviously Brits. The Brits end up with a full armored regiment or battalion for us Americans, equipped with the chieftains.
And believe me, those 120s and those chieftains are nothing to shake a stick at. Yeah.
Okay, these are the unlocked stretch goals. Again, guys, you got linen cards. Okay, backs for the data cards, which we'll go over in more detail. The flight stands, we showed you some books. We explained about the 2 upgraded Spiral books already. The audio book from Brad Smith, who I really enjoy his stuff. We hope to have him back for some more, if time permitting for him. Book number 5 in this series will be given to everyone who orders during the crowdfunding campaign. You get a PDF and an MP3 of it. The additional flight stands are just that, additional flight stands. It came with, I think we had 4 in there, guys, right? And now you've got 6. Red Strike, first strike, 2 in. You want to explain what that is, Jeff?
Yep. So to kind of add on to the campaign, we got 2 scenarios that are set between the Drive on the Line of campaign and the battles of Minden. So these are 2 scenarios that will be set in between those two products.
Okay. And I'll get both of you guys jumping in. What is in the UK and Soviet OLB?
So what we did was we took the full order of battle for the British 7th Armored Brigade, and said, what would that look like? And Jeff did his research and came up with the order of battle, and we looked at it at what counters we had and what counters we needed, and cards, of course, and realized that we needed to add some. If we added counters to what exists in the game, so this is an expansion, that you could have the entire most impressive 7th Armored Brigade, part of the Desert Rats, or they are the Desert Rats. I'm sorry, and there's a lot of challengers. There's a lot of challengers to counter that, and it may not counter that. We have the 197th Motorized Rifle Regiment, and again, we have enough counters to fill out along with what's already in Blood and Fury itself, so that you can do that. And again, the cards, so that you can play those particular formations.
Okay. yes, you can order the one-piece map during the crowdfunding campaign. All the late pledge after that, will probably not be available, or if it will be, it'll be limited like we've done in the past. For that one, and then Keith, here's one for you and Jeff.
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, so there's 3 companies of British Paras and the Pumas to carry them. We always like to provide the helicopters. Typically, Paras always have ground transport of some kind, but in this case, we had a limited number of counters. It's one counter sheet that has all of this. And so we wanted to make sure that there were enough Pumas to carry the 3 companies of Brit Paras. There's a couple of other things in there, like British engineers and British pontoons, to go with what's already in Blood and Fury itself, which is Soviet engineers and Soviet pontoons. I'm trying to think, what else did I miss? There's the 2S-12, a self-propelled mortar for the Soviets. That's a new unit that's in there. I think that covers it, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah, they're nice additions too for to playing the campaign, that you can construct your forces. So now you got plenty of British and plenty of Soviets to make a nice campaign.
What about this one, guys?
Oh, there you go. So if I get any squadron names wrong on the cards, I require that you tell me and chastise me. I'm doing my best though.
Hey Keith, your volume went down a lot.
Oh, it did? Can you hear me now?
No, his volume's fine on my end.
It's really low here. Okay. And then the other, what about my regiment and the squadron there?
Yeah, that's the one I was responding to.
Okay.
The 16th of 5th Lancers.
Okay. This is just an image to show you that they're winter maps. We know the duplicates in there. They're not going to be duplicates in the actual printout. It's just to show you some of the samples of the winter maps that if you pledge during the campaign, that will be included as at this moment to you guys. Okay.
Oh, very cool.
All right. Now, Keith, what else? Do we have some interesting pictures here?
Throw up some of the data cards. You just randomly. I know I threw you a lot of them.
Okay. Well,
unless you want to go through one by one.
Data cards. I don't have any data cards. All I have
well, then send whatever you have. I mean, I thought I sent you a link with the folder with the data cards.
You did. Hold on. I'll look for that. But here, you can talk about that.
Okay. So I threw this up here because the lower left here, it's one of the things that we got responses on was we'd have clubs trying to do competitive play, and they anybody who's in competitive play knows that people like to get their points advantage, and you don't have time on a club night to do research into what would be the actual proportion of artillery or whatever. So we realized that we needed to be more explicit than just sort of designer notes. So we put some restrictions on how much offboard artillery and what types you can purchase as a guideline. Everything's a guideline. It's more like a guideline. We also increased the cost of a lot of these things, which is the right-hand table, the non-unit point values. This is for the design your own system for the battle generator, in case I didn't say that. So there's the Soviets have a little bit more artillery because they have artillery. So if you guys pay attention to this page in the rules, it'll give you a little quick summary in the lower left there of what those restrictions are, and you can take a look at the points values and see if they help you balance things. One thing I should note is that I do have a note in there about electronic warfare advantage. If you want to spend 1,000 points and get a +2 or a -2, you can't do that. Basically, if you're using the electronic warfare, you decide before the scenario which side's going to have the advantage, and then that side, you guys decide. And then that side purchases a single, either +1 or -1 bonus, depending on whether it's NATO or Pact, for 500 points. That's kind of just the reason I threw this page up. That's pretty much it. Was I think we've hit all the holes that people thought were there, but were kind of in designer notes, which is not the place to put them, I suppose. So we've put them in a bright yellow box for you. Next, unless anybody has any questions. Okay. So these are a couple of additional miscellaneous tables that go with the solo system. Okay, so the solo system consists of 3 things. One is the deck, okay, and that's for your actual actions. Two is we're adding solo setups, and this is like Bitter Harvest. Am I right, Dev? So
You would be correct.
you have your two-player setup, which is the normal scenario you look at, and after that, at the end, you're going to have the solo setups, which is going to basically tell you if you depending on which side you pick to be the artificial enemy opponent, is going to give you guidelines for setting up. Now, obviously, setting up in Bitter Harvest, Lock and Load Tactical, whole different scale, so it's a different kind of a thing. You're going to kind of get different groups than you get in Lock and Load Tactical. You're going to have more leeway. But again, we like to give guidance, like with the solo assistant. So these two tables help with that. The solo location table on the left is basically if you have a wide area, say you're supposed to set up, an HQ or a set of tanks in a certain hex, and then you have to set up within 3 hexes. Well, where might you go? And so you kind of roll a table to give you a suggestion. Are you going to be on a hill hex? Are you going to be at a hill hex with terrain? Are you going to be not on a hill hex? But also the general stipulation is that you would not, as a general rule, set up within line of sight of the enemy or an enemy entrance zone. On the other hand, there'll be specific circumstances where we're going to tell you in the solo setup, you may do that, because some scenarios is, the 2-player scenario is you can come in on the whole edge, so it's kind of problematic to say you can't set up in line of sight of the whole edge. That doesn't really work. So again, there's suggestions for that. Now, the other thing that people surprisingly were like, well, should I start with my infantry loaded or not loaded? And, if you want some guidance on that, we have this little solo passenger table. And basically, a lot of times in the solo setups, what you're going to see is it's going to say, set up your transport and infantry in pairs. Take a pair, drop it on a hex. You figure out where it is with the solo location table. And then roll to see, does the transport set up in the same hex as the infantry? If it is in the same hex, is it loaded or unloaded? And it's not like the deck itself, loading and unloading, is dependent upon range from the enemy and whether you can see the enemy or not. And then if you can see the enemy, the range, just like everything else. But in this case, this is, because this is a setup, it's basically just going to say, are you in the same hex? If you're in the same hex, are you loaded? And if you're not in the same hex, where, which moves the infantry or the transport from the hex that you picked. Again, just guidelines. But these two little simple tables enable the solo setup system for the scenarios.
And honestly, a lot of this came from feedback from the solo players who wanted less decision making on their own. So as we are trying to take the customers' opinions and ideas into this, you're going to see a change in the solo system pretty much every game, because we're approaching it as kind of a living rules. We change what doesn't work and we add what people think they want. So all the solo systems are going to be compatible. They all share the same DNA. They're all probably going to be tweaked just a slight bit, just to try to keep improving the systems.
This is, excuse me. This is we updated for Blood and Fury. Obviously, we updated player aid cards where it needed. This is probably one, most other things were either tweaks or new terrain. But this is a case where we decided to replace an entire table in the lower left there. Wanted to make it clear to people that there's basically 3 categories of indirect fire units that are on the board. It's actually, if you look in the right-hand column, it says minimum range 0. These are your smaller mortars, basically your mortars that are under 107 millimeters. Minimum range 2 are your mortars that are 107 millimeters or more, like your 120 millimeter mortars. And then minimum range 7 is your actual artillery and self-propelled artillery. So that was something that sort of got lost in the shuffle, but it's kind of important to know. We do have the new capability of indirect fire. We've codified indirect fire units when they are firing directly, what their capabilities are. And basically the design concept is, if you're firing directly, it means you're firing basically within 7 hexes, so out to 6 hexes. It's covering the distance that you can't fire indirectly. For mortars, obviously, you have a choice either way. And then I'll spare you all the details, but basically with this new range of 6, that's the maximum range. But you're basically, your range is 3, which long range is 6, and then point blank range is 1 hex. So you can fire over the sights point blank at over open sights with, say, your M109 Win 55s, which I had to do once in defense of Frankfurt to defend against air mobile infantry that were trying to kill me, which did. And then we wanted to clarify that, for example, artillery delivered mines, we wanted to make sure it was on the right hand side there. I'm sorry, indirect fire units using indirect fire summary. A lot of people didn't understand that, when you can actually lay smoke from your mortars. And that's we wanted to make sure that, if you're firing a mortar, a self-propelled mortar, you're going to get a hex of smoke. You're firing artillery or self-propelled artillery, you're going to get 3 hexes of smoke, but also that you can do that on board as well as off board. And that's pretty much it. The top table there, move and fire summary, is exactly the same. So this is one page of the new terrain effects chart for Blood and Fury, and I just put it up here. If you want to see detail of dense urban, it's the second line here, and you'll notice that for ground troops it's still 1. For ground vehicles it's 3, so it's actually harder to get through than regular urban. And again, everything else is pretty much the standard, and the table basically delineates what I've already talked about as far as dense urban goes. Now, light industrial, which we didn't point that out on the big map, but on the Minden map is also a new terrain called light industrial. It covers everything from dockyards to clover leaves to industrial areas, actual industrial areas, factories and things like that. Places where there is cover, but there's also weird lines of sight. So we've declared it as obscuring at the same level, but blocking if it's on different levels. So that's kind of a weird thing. But it kind of works really well. So obscuring on the same level would mean that, just like every other obscuring terrain, if you go through you can see through the first hex, but you can't through the second hex. But there's a giant rail yard in Minden that arcs around on the far side of the old city, on the far side of the river, the east side of the river, and we cover all that with light industrial. There's a giant cloverleaf for the Autobahn south of Minden, and we just have that as light industrial. It's really handy, and moving forward, it's going to cover a lot of things so we don't have to have a whole lot of special rules for a terrain that basically is just odd buildings that are big or odd structures that have the capability of block line of sight, but you can get a weird angle on and see all the way through. As we all know in lock and load tactical, or dare I say it, ASL, where, you got the obscure thing through the hedge, down the lane, and past the building, and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that line of sight existed. This sort of covers that without having to have any complex rules. There is also tunnel. We've tested tunnel. I expect people will push back, but, it's there. There literally is a point where the middle canal, which crosses the Vaser, I want to make sure I said that right, Vaser. It's the canal going over the road, not under the road. So not the road going over it. If you've seen Google Maps pictures of it, it's really incredible, actually. But we kind of had to have rules to cover that of, it's like the bridge at Remagen. You're in the tunnel. How does that kind of work? You don't really have a line of sight out if you're in the tunnel. How do you delineate a tunnel hex? We have an in-tunnel marker. So you can be in the tunnel hex. If you see the 5th line down there on the left, that's the tunnel. There's 2 of these on the Minden map. If you have an in-tunnel marker, now you use the rules for in-tunnel, but you don't have to be in the tunnel. The river itself, the canal itself does not block line of sight. It's just one of those odd things. It's a lot of rules, companion rules for 2 pieces of terrain, but it's kind of there for completeness. So, we tried our best on that, and as I said, we tested it. See what you guys think. I try to get through them and not stay in them myself when I'm playing, but that's just me. I think that's all the new stuff on. I just picked this one because it had the most new stuff, basically.
Okay, you got some questions, Keith?
Nope.
Why did you do this stuff?
And where was I on the night of January 24th? And here's the biggest changes to play with. Okay, so I'm going to loop in Jeff on this too. One of the biggest changes is very subtle. It was brought up by multiple people, and then it was brought to my attention that when you have a light armor unit that has an armor value of 6, where if it has terrain, it was rolling those additional dice with a 6. And someone pointed out, well, trees are just as good for Jeeps as they are for T80, so why aren't they getting a 5 or a 6? T80 has an armor value of 5, that's why it was getting it. And we realized that all of the terrain defensive bonuses should be the same as any soft unit that's in there, which would be a 5 or 6. So the team came up with a great idea that they threw to me, and I'm like, you guys are right. Let's do this. So now all the defensive bonus, your armor is your armor. You're going to get a 6 for a light armor. But if you get any defensive bonuses for terrain or concealment, it's going to be a 5 or a 6. So you kind of have to roll 2 sets of dice. So we're providing in Blood and Fury green dice for terrain, if you will. It's not always terrain. I mean, concealment is terrain, but it's anything that's not not armor, basically. So if this light armor unit, say you have a recon unit that's sitting in a woods, you're going to roll 1 die against a 6 for, its armor. And then you're going to roll 1 die for a 5 or 6 for the woods. If it's concealment, you'd have 2 dice for 5 or 6. It's that simple. It's that subtle, but it brings, it brings this layer of reality without a whole lot of complexity that people who were playing were like, well, why isn't it like that? I'm like, well, yeah, it should be like that. So that's one of the changes there. I'm coming up empty on the rest. What's the next change, Jeff?
Throw it to me.
Right. I was just like trying to mutual memory here. There were 4 things, and that was one of them. This is when I wish I physically had my book.
The problem is, we've been doing all the play testing and everything for so long. They're really not new to us. So
right, they're new to you. Actually, let me hang on. I know where I can find this. So yeah, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll go find the list because there is a list.
So there's one time at band camp? No.
Oh, okay. So here we go. So we've kind of refined high rate of fire, high explosive. We wanted to make sure that you guys knew that it's not just a high rate of fire vehicle, like say the BMP-2, which has a high rate of fire 30 millimeter. It's that combined with special ammunition that helps it defeat heavy armor. So the Bradley is more the candidate for that. Other things, it's just a normal AP value. So we came up with 2 things. One is the high rate of fire HE is now normal fire. You're basically treating your HE as AP if you want. Everything's normal now. There's no limited to printed range. It's just, it folds into the normal weapons, except that you just have to kind of remember that if you have that, you're allowed to do that. Well, one of the things that came up was, that Nicholas Michon brought up was the Martyr, for example, and this applies to the BMP-2 as well, has a 20 millimeter cannon in addition to its primary weapon, which is the Milan. Well, that's a primary AP weapon, which is the Milan anti-tank guided missiles that it carries. It's not a anti-tank guided missile, dedicated vehicle, but it does have them, and on the counter, it has that green ATGM value. You're kind of shorting them when they're running out of ammo. They still have a 20 millimeter, but they can't do anything against an AP target. So we came up with an alternate AP value. We didn't want to put it on the counter. There's enough on the counter. I did want to leverage the national unit tables that come with the game. And the national unit tables were player aid cards. They're going into the companion, so you'll use them as a reference book, and especially with the spiral binding, you'll be able to flip through it very quickly. But the idea is that this 20 millimeter value for both full and reduced is literally going to be listed in that last column in the national unit tables, which is the special functions column. So where you see it, you have it. Where you don't see it, you don't have it. This applies to the BMP-2, which has its 30 millimeter, the BMP-1, which has a 73 millimeter slow, I guess I forget what they call it, low pressure, which kind of works out to be the same as the 30 millimeter. And then, the Bradley does, and people are like, well, why doesn't the Bradley have it? So the Bradley doesn't need it because it has high rate of fire HE. So its HE is its armor piercing. So we don't need to have another value underneath that. And that's the subtle difference between the two. There's just not that many units that have high rate of fire HE. The other thing that was pointed out was helicopters may not have high rate of fire HE, but they have a high rate of fire gun, and they're firing, generally speaking, they're firing down on the thinnest armor on a tank, for example, or the thinnest armor in any vehicle, basically. So the helicopters can also have that. If it's regular machine guns, we're kind of erring on the side of, no, let's keep it normal. But if they've got like a chain gun of some sort, then yeah. I mean, that's enough. You put 3,000 rounds a minute or 6,000 rounds a minute, depending on what it is. downrange from the top, and yeah, something's going to get through is kind of what we are. So we give them high rate of fire HE as well. So if they run out of missiles, again, they can use their HE as an AP, which they can sort of do anyway. But no, I can't say that. Let me not confuse the issues. The reason they can do it is they have high rate of fire HE, but not everything has. So you got to pay attention to what it says in the National Unit Table as far as your helicopters go. There are versions of just about every helicopter that have some sort of a chain gun or an anti-tank gun mount. I don't mean anti-tank gun like a 75 millimeter. I mean some sort of anti-tank, projectile weapon.
That info will be on the data cards too, right?
Yeah, but we can't cover them all with our counter set, so we might have like, a BO-105 that basically has the hot missiles and doesn't have, a chain gun. So forgive us for that. We're working within our counter set. And I mean, if you really feel like you need that, you can honestly play it as a house rule and say, well, I'm going to add this chain gun and I'm going to give it this value. And there you go. We always like to think of the game as a kit. It's just that we do have some physical limitations on how many counters we have and what we can put on a counter. So that's why we say we're leveraging the national unit tables for that. So that's 2 and 3 is the alternate AP for those that have a regular weapon without special ammo that may run out of missiles. And then there's the high rate of fire HE refinement, where now it's just you trade HE for AP and it has normal characteristics of either. Okay, the fourth one, Jeff. There was a fourth change. I don't want to sit here and fish around this PDF looking for it, but I'm going to take a quick look at the designer notes and let's see what I can find. Here. Oh, and then the fourth thing was the direct fire by onboard artillery. That's the thing I discussed about, out to a range of 6 that you can use. We've clarified how you use onboard artillery when, it's basically out to a range of 6, whether or not you have a minimum range of 6. Indirect fire, you can always fire directly out to 6 if you don't want to fire indirectly. You can fire directly. Yeah, get that right. And that's the main changes.
All right, can you think about this one?
Smoke was usually called down by higher levels in the British Army of the Rhine. At our level, it was just HE. Okay.
That would normally be a scenario.
Yeah, most of the scenario stuff is HE. Any smoke strikes would be, any smoke off board artillery would be from a higher level. Are you saying that you wouldn't fire smoke from a mortar? From a mortar battery that you had under local control? I mean, that would be something that, we could take a look at, but at the same time, I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much effect it would have on a scenario to allow that, but you can always put in, you can always say, no, that's not going to happen. We don't have too much onboard artillery in the scenarios. Hopefully just enough. So we'll see how it plays out as far as that goes. Jeff knows, like, when you say phaser, you have to do hand control. Laser. We're going to cross the phaser today. That's funny. Are there PDFs of the updated player rates, thinking especially the sequence of play?
No, I was talking to somebody about that.
Yeah,
we didn't update them.
Yeah, they come in the game. That I can say.
And the sequence of play hasn't really changed.
There is one subtle thing, which is that pontoons, when they deploy, we kind of normally we wouldn't do anything in the marker removal phase, but it turned out to work the best as far as balancing it. So we did add a half a line to one of the sections where it's basically you do your pontoon deployments and retractions in the marker removal phase. Oh, here we go. So somebody says, we've been playing with the new terrain dice for defense and love it. Okay, great. Can't wait for World War 85 and Blood and Fury. Neither can I. Aurelia isn't all that open. Yeah, that's why it's, that's why it's obscuring. So it's not all that open. 2 hexes, if there's a lot of it around, 2 hexes doesn't get you very far in line of sight. It gets you 300 meters. And also, we're trying to cover more than rail yards. So you end up in that design choice of, okay, what's the similar concept of this group of buildings? And, the rail yards are closer to cloverleafs, believe it or not, in terms of vision. I mean, cloverleafs are not great to see through either.
Okay, Keith, here you go.
And he picks. Okay, so this is our new data card format, and as Dave puts these up, you'll see more details. But the basic idea is that you're going to see obviously the name at the top. You're going to see the biggest image of the counter, front and back. In this case, you don't need a back because it's a support weapon. On the left, and then on the right, you're going to see what it is. This is infantry, anti-tank, guided missile teams. What type of unit it is it a main battle tank, whatever, alternative armored support weapon. It should correspond to the national unit tables, so because it came from the same spreadsheet, basically. But it also has a summary of what's on the national unit tables on the lower right, below, in this case, the alternative armored support weapon. So there's rules references in the national unit tables to where you look, depending on which column you're looking at. That's compiled into here. So this obviously is a direct fire unit, and it's subject to a missile ammo check, and it tells you which rule sections to go. So if you happen to have that there, you can go right to it. The lower left is for our miniatures players. There was a lot of back and forth on the old one about scales, and what we realized is there's not a whole lot of correspondence that we as board gamers could find. And when we talk to miniatures guys, they're like, well, is it the size of the figure? Is it the size of the thing? My thing is, it's the ground scale. That's for me. So I think that's really the only thing we can make consistent, because we have a range and it's based on a scale. So if one hex is 150 meters, then you need to convert whatever game rules you're doing to that scale somehow. So what we've done is provided you with a table that you can do that with. And then basically, the conversions, which is, you take effective range, which is the printed range. So it'd be 14 here. You have that's your point blank range. And then you double that, and that's your maximum range. That's the basic formula for weapons in World War 85, with minor exceptions. If you're doing miniatures, you kind of need to know, well, what is 150 meters in your game? If 150 meters is 1.5 hexes, then that's how you would convert the hexes that we have into the inches that you have, and then you put that as effective range, and then you would double it to get your maximum, have it to get your point blank, whatever rounding you want to do. So that way you can just write it right there, and you've converted it to whatever your favorite game is, because it was almost impossible to cover all the different types of games there are, and we didn't want to base it on one, much as some are very good. That was a little beyond, like, miniatures guys, we want to support you, but you're better at converting your scales than we are. Pontoons. Speaking of pontoons, so these are the new pontoon units. On one side, it is the pontoons deployed. On the other side, it's the trucks that transport them. Going back and forth is part of the game. It is heavy armor or a soft target. So the heavy armor is when it's deployed, because it's just really hard to hit. So we reclassified it as heavy armor. It's not that the pontoons are armored. Also, they're going to be at the level of the river, which means they're sort of at -1. So to actually fire at them, you need to be adjacent to them. And then, of course, engineering capabilities, because they basically can be used to make a bridge over a hex side. Or if you have an all-water hex, you can extend it out over the all-water hex as well. Obviously, you don't need any range to go into the table in the lower left there. The rules for this are in the companion for Operation Red Gauntlet. The counters are yes. The rules are in Operation Red Gauntlet because the counters are in the. Jeff, help me here. The counters are in the game. They're in Blood and Fury.
Well, I don't know where you put the rules, to be honest. But
no. But I mean, the scenario, wherever the scenario is that uses them, that's where you're going to find.
And that's in Red Gauntlet.
That's in Red Gauntlet. Yeah, that's what I think.
As far as I know, they're only in Red Gauntlet.
Yeah, so, I was just double checking that edit. But I was going over both books, so it's like.
So pontoons can be in place by an engineer unit, and basically do a morale training check. For larger rivers, like in the Vaser scenarios, you're going to need more than one pontoon to cross the river.
Vaser.
Yeah, the Vaser. But in any case, you would be deploying more than one to get all the way across. And by the same token, if you're hit by artillery or an airstrike and you ding one of the pontoons, they can attempt to rebuild it with another pontoon unit to
right. And one engineer can put multiple pontoons out, but you do have multiple engineers. I think there's 3 platoons of Soviet engineers. There's going to be 2 platoons of British engineers in the reinforcements counter sheet.
And the other thing too is you can use the pontoons for ferries. So
right, you can use it for ferry, and there is a new ferry marker.
Yeah.
Because you have fords, you have bridges. Now you have a ferry marker.
Yeah, and basically what the ferry does is basically allows a non-amphibious unit, say like a T-80, to move across the river just as if it was amphibious. So it's going to have to start on the one side of the river, and then next activation it can move just across to the other side.
Right.
It stops.
So for those of you who are waiting for the Harrier, here it is. It was actually, of all the planes that show up, the Harrier, my understanding from the time is that the research that I've done was absolutely dedicated to close air support. The short-ranged, smaller craft were more survivable, and so they were tasked with actually supporting troops up on the front line. So, again, you see direct fire, close air support. That pretty much covers the Harrier. 3 to make 4 is nothing to shake a stick at. 2 to make 5 is just don't get shot at. Next. I did throw a bunch of British in here because I figured you guys want to see. The British is like all brand new. The Soviets have some new stuff. Even the West Germans have new stuff. The Americans have stuff you've seen before because there wasn't a whole lot of. There was a U.S. Brigade up there, but that was kind of about it. It was basically the British, Belgians, the Dutch, up there, and of course the Soviets. There we go. Oh, here we go. So this is obviously the FE-438 with swing fire missiles, and here you can see a bit more of the national unit table indicators on the right there. Now this is a draft card because it says no alt AP value. We're not putting it on there if there's no alt AP value. We're not going to put that on there. That's why I said this is a draft card. It is light armor. You can see everything direct fire, missile ammo check. It is assault capable because it has an assault value. Not a great one. I wouldn't go in there with machine guns myself, but there you go. It has a vehicle assault bonus because it is a vehicle if it's involved in assault. It can spot for onboard indirect fire. Advanced night fighting is available for it, and the optional thermal imaging is also available for it. Thermal imaging remains optional. You do have to download those rules from the Lock and Load tactical forums. Land Rover ATGM. So there was an early version had a Hummer, and somebody said they didn't have any Hummers. So okay, we did some research. We found the Land Rover ATGM again with swing fires. It is unarmored, but then again, the Jeeps for the Americans, the Jeep tows are also unarmored. And you can see again. I'm not going to reiterate it, but you can see it. You get the variable national unit table columns on the right there, and you see this is a one-step unit. You can see the back of the counter too. Next slide, please. I love saying that. So for those of you who may be concerned about indirect fire support for the British, they do have M110s. And, they're kind of amazing, 3 to make 3. Now, you'll notice on the right where it says indirect fire, it also gives you the minimum range, just as a reminder. And again, that number is in the national unit table. So it's got that's its minimum indirect fire range. If it's under that, it has the option to direct fire, but again, its range is 3, its long range is 6, and its point blank range is 1. Next, please.
We are waiting for the slides to load, sir.
So I'm looking at the questions while I do this.
Loads, here's some questions for you.
Oh, Harold, I wish I could. I saw the email come out. I'm like, But I will be watching for reports to be sure. And I'm only speaking for me. I'm not speaking for the rest of them. It's not the size of the figure. It's the heck that's under it. Neoprene map for Blood and Fury.
Right.
You mean the You mean the neoprene tracks from Storming the Gap?
You can buy the Storming the Gap ones, and it's exactly the same because Keith and I went over this. With the exception, it says Storming the Gap.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Being that we had quite a few left over from Storming the Gap, we decided it wasn't as much of a call, and so you can either use one from Storming the Gap or buy one now while the supplies last. But there's at least 100 there from what I understand.
I love them myself because it just puts everything in one place. I've heard of it's going to no. Many reasons. One is we are in an alternate history game in 1985, and the real world is subtract 2022 from 1985, and that's how old this armor is, and it was old in 85. So wasn't me. I don't have a chime like that.
And I would add, the Soviet tanks, like the T-80s, and even the T-72s, they're pretty effective, if they're up against Leo 1s or such. But, when they're going up against anything that has 120 millimeter, like a Leopard 2 or the Challenger, they melt away pretty quick, and then forget about it with the T-64, other than against a anti-tank guided missile type unit.
Right. Oh, shoot, what was I going to say? As far as the effectiveness, I mean, everybody's seen the pictures and heard the stories of the the Soviet armor in the Ukraine where the turrets pop off and blow off and everything. That's been that way forever. Soviet tanks have always been physically smaller and simply don't have the systems that, for example, the M1 has to handle ammunition storage detonations. So when the ammo's right under them, when it goes, and generally it goes, if there's a penetration, it goes path of least resistance, and it blows the turret off. Every first-hand account I've ever read about Soviet armor in action post-World War II included at least one story of the turret popping off when they hit it. So, and that hasn't changed, as far as I can see. So yeah, as far as how it relates to World War 85, we did presume there were improvements. There's a 10-year backstory which is not published, rationalization for getting to a point where the World War III and World War 85 would erupt, and there's a small portion of the political side of that in like a one-page summary in Blood and Fury. It's also in Storming the Gap in the modular scenario book for that. But the presumption is that in order to actually maintain, start, let alone maintain World War III on so many fronts, that there were going to have to be some improvements in the Soviet army. But I won't go into detail on that.
And overall, I would say that the system handles it pretty well when it comes into command and control. Generally in a scenario, the Soviets are going to have large forces, but they're rather lumbering. Now, hey, if they get a lucky break or you or the NATO player miscalculates some timing on activations, they can really do some damage and everything. But a lot of times NATO has the opportunity, if played cautiously or whatever, to kind of dance around.
Yeah, it really is a case of the Soviets have more units in a smaller command radius, which simulates doctrine, and fewer activations. NATO, people say it's like, oh, NATO can do this, NATO can do that. But the fact is that NATO has to do that. They have to be able to maneuver. And you have to maneuver them. You must. Otherwise, you're going to lose because it's not a question of you're doing it because you can. You're doing it because you have to, because if they do get the jump on you, now you've got 10 platoons firing on you. And if they're at point blank range, those 125 smoothbores are just as scary as any other gun. So that's why people would comment about the M1 Abrams. And they're like, well, this individual Abrams can't seem to handle, these Soviet tanks. I'm like, you have to fight your Abrams. I think I've said this before on other podcasts. It's really good at fire and move. You can literally move it 3 hexes and still not suffer any fire reduction. So if you pop out from behind a hill on his flank, you can take him out, barring opportunity fire, but if you time it right and he's all ops complete, you can take out a stack, or at least, disrupt one in a stack and kill the other one if you get lucky. But you kind of have to do that and dance away and do it again and again and again, because that's the nature of being outnumbered.
Yeah. And
my
you know,
2 cents.
And my 2 cents as far as Ukraine's concerned, you're dealing with a lot of tanks that are 30 or 40 years old with only marginal improvements, while a lot of the anti-tank guided weapons have drastically improved their performance.
Oh yeah, big time. So we saw that one.
How about this one?
All right, so this is the FV432M. It's the 81 millimeter mortar mounted on the FV432 for a support weapon for infantry. It's a good solid little thing to have handy, and it can drop smoke in the game. Let me know if that was not doctrine, and we'll see about scenario rules for that. Next card. Again, I kind of emphasize the British cards because I think that's the passing by of an A10. There is an A10 in the game, yes. Did you see the footage of the BTR-4 30mm penetrating 280 side armor lower hull? I did not. I'm pretty sure it probably went through. I don't want to be in that T-80, that's for sure. That.
There we go.
All right, well, we did this one too. But again, that no alt AP value is not going to be there. So, and again, the British, they also had M109s. So your M109s and M110s, you've got a good contingent of off-board artillery, onboard artillery. So the basis for the British anti-tank helicopter squadrons is the Lynx. And here it is, basically. Again, this is a version that has a machine gun. It doesn't have any other type of anti-armor gun. But reading up on doctrine at the time, unless somebody has some other references, the doctrine was basically to kind of do what people do in World War 85, which is hang out like right behind a woods near a road, and when the Soviets come down the road, kind of pop up and fire at them and try and kill them all. There's our Harrier again. Next. I did want to. Do you have tornado? Did you have the tornado somewhere? I know you just have numbers. Just there we go. So here's your tornado close air support. It's pretty formidable. It's a little bit of a hedge because it was more for interdiction, but hey, it's an alternate history game, so there you go. You're gonna be able to drop that stuff right on the front line.
That's all I have loaded.
All right. That was my research for the day.
All right, guys. Does anyone have any questions? Well, we did say we talked about other things World at War. Just so you know, the next crowdfunding game we're going to have out is a Napoleonic game called Glory and Empire First Victories. And we'll talk that more on the show. But after that, we plan to release this for the Kickstarter.
Ooh.
Okay.
Shiny.
And Keith, myself, and Devin have all played this, and I have to say we had a blast.
Oh, yeah.
I think the biggest change we're going to do is we might get rid of the white silhouettes and go ahead and put actual images on it. Yes, I know that can you really see it at that size and blah, blah, blah. We have a great artist working on this. We'll just see what we get. If we get enough artwork fast enough, then there will be images. If we don't, because I kind of like the images because when you do the data cards, it looks nice on the data cards.
Yep.
Okay. Someone asked about the computer game. It's still a ways off, guys. The programmer team is working on Nations at War because they had already bought Nations at War, was already released, and then the programmer bailed on us. And the team that came in we felt it was better honorably to do them first because they had already been started and waiting and then got kind of left behind because of the programming team. So we turned around and did that. But as you can see, it's in the planning. And anything that's done in Nations at War will be done on World at War 85. That is the One Piece for the Gap map. It's all the same stuff.
Oh, look, Dev, the Valley of Death.
Valley of Death, my favorite battlefield area ever.
Put that back up, Dave. We'll tell them what the Valley. We don't want to have it in. It's not an insider. So in the lower, look dead center of the map, then slightly down a half a map and to the right, there's a huge cultivated area. And cultivated hexes can catch on fire.
Well, and there's also 4 bridges that cross that river that
Right.
cuts right through that huge field area there.
And just battalions are coming that way, and companies are trying to stop them, and there's always wreck after wreck after wreck in that valley. So, and people are on the edges trying to fire into it. It gets a lot of love.
And it catches on fire.
And it catches on
And
fire.
it
Now,
will burn.
yeah, it will burn. Now, granted, when we did most of our fighting, we had the previous rendition of the fire rules, and people wanted adjustments, so we did make adjustments. So it won't catch on fire as much. Oh, but it will. It'll also go out a little faster. So 205 tights for 3s. Woo! Yes, exactly. Yeah, the tornadoes are pretty formidable as far as what they carried. If things have not changed, then the question is, will that have sub warfare for the naval game? If
Yes.
things have not changed since Dev and I, that is yes, absolutely. And I loved it. I sank something. Dev, what did I sink of yours with a Norwegian diesel boat?
Oh yeah, it was 2 or 3 of my ships. It was
so, and then he killed
and
me.
You kept sneaking in and pulling out, and sneaking in and pulling out.
Right.
I finally caught you. But yeah,
Right.
it was.
Yeah, it's just it's got this subtlety to it. I mean, that's the thing. The layers of the game. Wow, Steve's done an amazing job on it, and it plays fast. First of all, but the sub game especially is like, you've got your individual American subs and your Los Angeles attack subs, and then you've got like Norwegian diesels and. Dev and I did our first sub. We're like, fire all, and then we didn't have any missiles left.
like, all right, game
This-
over. It
this-
comes down. It comes
this
down
is
to our
different.
airstrikes now.
Right, this is
Somebody,
different. So.
somebody was in front of the admiral afterwards explaining themselves.
It's like, why did you use all your 5-inch ammunition?
That's
what we had.
that's one of the things that you're going to have to learn about this one is if you're familiar with the old Fleet series. The Fleet series in the advanced rules had your ammunition reloads. This tracks it a little bit better than the old Fleet series, and the scale of the scenarios is you dump all your missiles, there's a chance you're not going to reload at all. So you have really got to husband your resources when it comes to your anti-ship missiles, because hey, if you're on a frigate and you've got 4 anti-ship missiles, you launch all 4 of them, well, that's it, you're done. You're not going to fire anymore for the length of the scenario, because it just takes too much time to get back to port, and you cannot load missiles underway. It just can't be done. Believe me, I was there. I know. You've got to do that in port. So the one thing Keith and I ran into when we first played it is that we were just playing it, the Fleet game style was like, just dump everything.
Fire, because
And
we
then-
can fire again.
Exactly. And then we sit there and realize, like, oh, I got no missiles left. Yeah, you got any missiles left? No, I got no missiles left.
I got nothing left. I got nothing.
Aircraft's about the only thing that can rearm and do that, but that can only do that like every 3 turns. So I was like, all right, well, okay.
Yeah, but you
know.
see the value in the P3 squadron that's flying out of Iceland that has harpoons.
Yeah.
Because they come out and they fire off, and another squadron tracks the guy, and the first squadron goes back to base and reloads with harpoons and comes out, because they can do that in the time frame of a scenario. But with a ship, in the time frame of a scenario, you can't. There's no way to do that.
Yeah, when I was on 2 Perry class frigates when I was in, and when we were in port and did onloads and offloads, it would take us, I think we could get everything offloaded off of the Mark 13 in about 10 hours, but it took us about 16 hours to reload it. It's just the process that it takes. It's a very slow, long, arduous process to reload. Now shells are easy, especially 3-inch or 5-inch, but you're not going to kill a lot of ships with 3-inch and 5-inch. You're firing your MR1s, MR2s, SM1s, SM2s over the horizon, because you don't want to be in gun-to-gun range with enemy ships. So,
Okay.
have you got any pictures from that, David?
Yes. Hold on. I'm going to throw this back up here, guys. On the World at War. Okay. Do we have, I guess, a little further north with the Dutch, right?
We do. I'll bring you a question. Will you be releasing some other thing in Europe? Getting place something else? Okay, so the plans within plans.
No, we
within
don't
plans.
use the plans. We don't need no stinking plans.
So there's more Europe in the plans, of course, because we're kind of going by nationalities that we want deployed. So I don't know if you include Scandinavia in Europe, but there will be that. The plan includes a Middle East module, and that would be World War 85 Middle East. So, the alternate reality there. Down the line, we want to get to the Far East with China and with Japan and with Taiwan. The Russians out there, possibly.
What about the Mexican-Texas border?
There you go. So if you don't consider Texas to be Europe, America breached is in line to be done. Where we have our alternate reality gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of, okay, I don't have that mug. Does that mean that Devin just left, even though he's sitting right there?
Well, see, that's how I ordered them off the site. There we go.
Oh, there we go. So basically, America, the Middle East, the Far East, the far East, Italian front. I want the Italians to come in. So yes, in fact, Nicholas Michonne's the one who proposed. He's thinking like an Italian, Hungarian, Romanian module. That's had the least thought time. It's not in development yet, but I had gone and researched the Italian order battle because I find that a lot of World War III games short the Italians. Last time I saw the Italians was like Sixth Fleet, I think, the first edition.
Now the 3 games that we have, let's say, jostling for position. How's that sound? We have America Breached. We have the
French module. Never give in.
Never give in. And what was the other one?
We Shall Hold.
We Shall Hold. Yeah.
Sort of like the second half of the Northern Front because it's the Dutch, the Belgians, but also we included part of the Southern, Seventh Corps. Not Seventh Corps areas, the Canadians. So that's kind of what's jockeying for position right now.
So all the nationalities are going to be voting for their
right, and everybody wants theirs. It's like, and I want them all, but you kind of have to go one at a time to give it the focus it needs.
And so we're gonna put a poll up, and we'll just see where people want. We're not saying that's what we're going to do.
Oh boy, we'll shift gears up.
All right, real quick, Matthew Shaw. Second class gunners make guns. USS Kurtz, FFG 38. USS John A. Moore, FFG 19. Guns for life.
I take it you know each other.
Brother guns. That's
we
definitely
I saw that
chewed a lot of the same ocean and walked a lot of the same corridors and operated the same equipment. That's for definite sure.
Yeah, just one comment on the Italian front was the reason we want to get these nationalities in is that every single one of them is different, and when we do the research for it, I always use the Czechs as an example where they have the Dana. It's a an 8-wheeled 155 millimeter self-propelled artillery. It's just really cool looking, and it's a 155. But until you do the research, you don't know exactly where it fits in. And it turns out that, that kind of stuff is in every army. So, Nicholas Michonne, of course, is working on the French. And the French tend to get, how should I phrase this? Misinterpreted. And so we're going back to the data, which is what we always do to see, what these are all about. And they have a very unique thing because at the time, they didn't have an armor-piercing round for a lot of their vehicles. But they had a heat round that was about 10 times as effective as anybody else's. I didn't even know about this. So that's good in a way. And then it's bad because you have the reactive armor on a lot of Soviet tanks. So it's really going to be an intriguing combination to be fighting them. Plus their, companies are slightly larger. They have more platoons. So it's kind of like this halfway point between a Soviet battalion and other nations' NATO companies. So that it has its own flavor. And that's the thing that we try to bring to the table, no pun intended, which is for each nationality is that, people want to, Devin loves playing the Czechs. What do they got? They got T-55 AM2s. Okay. And lots of dense terrain. Okay. No, go ahead, Devin. All right, you're muted.
They're AM2s.
AM2s, yeah.
Right.
AM2s.
They're not just T-55s. They're AM2s.
They're
AM2s.
And
like you said earlier, they got the Dana.
That's right. And there's AM2s. What they have enhanced move and fire. You've got a T-55, but it's got enhanced move and fire, and it's got reactive armor. Okay, it's still a T-55.
It's still a T-55, but
it's got more survivability than other things, and It still assaults.
Hey guys, this is for you guys. Jeff.
Yeah, this is for you, Devin.
Yep, this is for me.
Much as I'm a big Chindits fan. So
we do have a module that's currently in the works for Kohima. That really doesn't involve the Chindits. Right. We do want to do more tactical in the Far East. We have got ideas and plans for it. It just comes down to how much free time and the designers we have to be able to work on said projects. We want to do Korea. We want to do Syria. There's a couple pet projects I'd love to do that I probably will never get to. There's a lot of stuff we want to do. It just comes down to there's not enough me and enough time in the day.
Yeah, the ideas just keep bubbling up.
Yeah.
We need more. We need some more developers.
We really do need more developers.
It's not artists and it's not anything else. It's really comes down to developers that realize the development is not playing a game and going, I like it. Devin and I were having a big conversation about that yesterday.
Yeah, it comes down to, and this is my basic belief, is that everybody wants to be a playtester until it's time to playtest. Just like everybody wants to be a designer and developer until it comes to design and development. So
I will say this for me. It's I tend to be overly precise, as people probably have noticed. But play test, people are always like, I want to play test. And what they're really saying is they want to play balance. And play testing is you've got a new set of rules and you're playing any scenario you can make up, anything made up, to find the holes in the rules. Play balancing is you've got a set of rules and you have a specific scenario that you want to make a fun scenario. And then you play that and you balance it. So for me, there's, when people say play testing, they're really saying play balancing is what I have found. And that's fine. With the electronic prototyping that we have between Tabletop Simulator and Vassal, that's much easier to do nowadays. The surprising thing is the number of people who don't have Vassal or Tabletop Simulator. And, between, COVID starting it and just, it's very difficult to prototype physically. It's still expensive to do that. It's just so much easier to make the artwork and then make an electronic version.
I found, honestly, most of my playtesting for all the expansions that I've done for Tactical over the last year and a half, 2 years, has come from the digital side. Mm-hmm. Because if you're one of our beta testers, I mean, we get the modules and the new games up there quicker. I have probably got more playtesting feedback from that than I have from my actual physical. I have one playtester who I can rely on 100%. When I started doing playtesting for Better Harvest, I probably sent out 30 playtest copies. And Chris was the only one guy out of the 30 playtest copies I sent out. Chris was the only guy that stuck with it and gave me feedback and play balanced the way that actually was helping me. I had a couple people, I played it. This was kind of cool. All right, what feedback do you have? Well, I liked it.
Yeah.
That's not playtesting, though. I need feedback. I'll tell the story because I've done playtesting for decades, and so the way I look at it, if I'm play balancing something, it's all right. I'm trying to find the holes in it. What's unbalanced? What's overly balanced? What I think we'll need to bring the scenario more in line with each other, so both sides can have a shot and have fun with it. And so I was pointing it out to this designer and developer. And I don't want to mention any names, but I think he kind of got offended. It's like, well, I don't think you like my scenarios. It's not that at all. I'm trying to show you where the shortcomings of these scenarios are so you can fix them to make a better product. So it's like, and even designers and developers is like, I'm giving you creative criticism. I'm not knocking it. I actually liked a lot of the concepts. It's just, this is what, and so, yeah, it. If you want to be a playtester, play balancer, you got to be prepared to give constructive criticism and know the games in detail. Pay attention to detail. Anybody who served in the military knows that one. Pay attention to detail. You can't just say it's fine, it works, or I don't think I like this. Okay, why? You got to give me something to work with.
When it turns too long, when it turns too short, was there enough forces on one side? Did the reinforcements come in too late?
Did the Chrome not make sense? Did the SSRs not make sense? Were the victory conditions too vague? I mean, and I get it. Like I said, I've done playtesting for years, and I've just gotten into a certain way of doing it that because being a designer myself, I know what the designers are looking for in feedback. So if you're going to play balance, please just give us as much feedback as you can. And it's a job. It really is. It comes down to it. I play the same silly scenario 5 or 6 times, back to back to back to back. It's a job. And you got to, and so I get it. I know. I mean, like I said, when I sent out the playtest kits for Bitter Harvest, I knew 10% is what I'm usually, that's about the amount. So I sent out about 30. This was much lower than my normal average. I ended up with 1, but it is what it is. So.
Right. I got some pictures here.
Yep.
That is of the naval game for World at War 85. And I don't know who's the picture, so I'll leave it up to you. Dev's pictures.
Yeah, that's Steve Keith playing. That was one of the, I think this is actually the first time we were playing it through. The map pretty much is mostly the same as it looks in that we have, you'll notice the little circle, the white circles on the map. Those are the radar and ground installation searches. So if you move into an opponent's search zone, it'll be easier for them to spot you. I think Steve has tried to clean that up a little bit because it did start to get a little bit messy with, each base had its own circle. So I think we've cleaned that up a little bit with the map. But the map is general. That's what the map is going to look like. So
I can say that it's really hard to see, but Steve's got his hand in his pocket, the left hand. Below that is a grayish table. And that's the sonar contact table, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right.
And so he's got built in a very simple table the age of the sonar systems, the I forget what it's called, but the effectiveness of the submarine's propulsion on damping its sounds, all built into a nice little table. So that the person who asked about the sub game, it really adds a sub flavor to it without any complexity at all, really. But you've got an older sub, you're more careful.
Well, unless you're approaching, Soviet formations, and then it really doesn't matter because Soviet sonar capabilities, for the most part, are garbage, as was seen by your diesel boat sneaking into the task force 2 or 3 times before I finally caught it.
Well, there you go. And the lower left there, no, that's not it. There's sort of a tactical.
Yeah,
card. I don't know if that's still there or not. That was an early iteration.
I think I do have a picture in there of it. So
hold on, I'm looking up the rest of these.
And I don't know if that's changed since
I'm going to upload some more, but here's another picture.
Yeah, this is the task force display. So I'm trying to think.
So basically,
you've got statuses in there.
Yeah, you've got different statuses in there. Plus, you've got the center of the fleet. Then you've got basically you can break it port inner and port outer, which are basically each side represents half the coverage of the fleet. So if you kind of see, you've got that one ship that's right in the middle. That's in the middle of the fleet, and then the ships off to the left and right of it are in a protective circle around it. The left hand side counters represent the left 180 degrees around the center ships and the right 180. And so there is ways that, especially with the sub game, you have to kind of work your way through the different layers to get into the center, or you can just move into the outer ring and try popping one of the ships in the outer defense zone. It actually, there should be some closer up views of it, pictures of it.
Hold on, some more pictures coming.
But yeah, if you have a task force, you're going to put this in the task force display, and then there will be a TF counter, a task force counter that you put on the map.
Oh, it's still uploading. But anyway, this does look like it will be up there, and Keith is working on an air game, but it's far from completed. So before anyone gets all excited,
but I did manage to clear the table it's on, so I can go back to that.
There you go, guys.
Oh, there.
All right. Yeah. So like we said, we got that one ship in the center right there. I can't really tell, but then you look off to the left of it, you've got port, and then you'll see the port anti-submarine screen, starboard. and anti-submarine screen. And then you've got your missile reloads. And the missiles, what we've done with the counters, instead of having a separate sheet where you track it, you were actually going to have the counters, and they're going to have, numbered 1 through 8 on it. And basically, if the ship's got 8 missiles, you'll just point it at the 8 while it's on the ship. And then as you use the missiles, you just turn it, clockwise down until you run out of missiles. And these are two different task forces on here. You've got the upper one, and then the lower one. You see the Kirov class with the cosmonauts there in the center, and I hate Russia. I cannot pronounce Russian.
It's only transliteration.
Yeah, the FFG, and then the DDG off to the left of it, and then another DDG and DDG off to the right of it in the different positions, screening the task group.
One thing about this, so the Kirov, which is in the bottom center there, you can see the orange H for its helicopter.
Yep.
Upper left is its, I think that's its anti-aircraft, because it's blue, just like in World War 45.
Right. Yeah. That's
so but it's got an anti-aircraft range of 1 because of its missiles. Now 1 is like 1. These are 45 nautical mile hexes, which I think is the same as the Fleet series.
I think the Fleet series were 40, but it's very, very similar.
But on the other hand, it's really effective, 4 days being 3. So,
and you'll also notice in the upper right-hand corner, it tells you how many. It has 10 P700 missiles. So that's why you kind of see right above it, it's got 2 counters there, 1 to mark the, up to 8, and then the 2 for the 2. So once you fire those 10 missiles, that's it. You're done. You're not going to fire. And the FFG right next to it has got 2, looks like 85 RU missiles. And then the DDG off to the left of that has 4 P80. So, and all of those missiles have different to hit numbers and damage numbers. So it's all, Steve has done a phenomenal job in researching and even getting so far into the granularity that the different missiles have their own to hit numbers and such. And there's a couple task force markers with some Soviet, I think those are Oscar classes screening, and you can see some Norwegian markers off in the distance.
I think is it the lower right that's the torpedo value?
Well, lower left, lower right, it's all both 1 at 7. But I think lower right is. The
other thing is this is a die 10 system, not a die 6 system. I should have said that.
Yeah, we should.
So that 4 to make 3 is much more effective than a 4 to make 3 in World War 85, because it's it's a naval game, so we need a little more flexibility. That would be my arm. That's my P3. It was doing anything. You notice there's some F-16s right in the middle there. They were Norwegian F-16s. They were being very helpful.
They were operating out of the air bases in Norway.
Trying to remember, I had a U.S. sub there in the middle right. The blue blocks we were using for detection, is that right?
Yeah, we were using that for detection. Yeah. And then the X's were for ops complete markers.
Right. And you'll notice these are definitely playtest counters, because the counter itself would actually be where the black border is around these. But
we didn't bother
cutting it so fast. We're just like, there you go.
Yeah, we didn't bother to trim it. It's like, we'll just play with this as is.
Right. Oh, there's my Norwegian diesel sub in the upper left. Okay. Yeah. I remember this task force.
Yep.
So you look at this and go, oh wow, look, I've got these ships, but on the left there, the Bergen, the Norwegian frigate, has 2 Penguin missiles. The car in the middle has 2 Harpoon missiles.
The French Molders doesn't have any.
Doesn't have any missiles. On the other hand, it's got anti-aircraft.
Yeah, it's got some pretty beefy anti-aircraft, 4 to make 4.
Right. So it's that first salvo where we were totally in other game mode. It was the first time we'd ever started like, okay, I'm firing them all, and that's when we had the whole discussion about are there guns?
I think the very first game we played was I was on one side, and I think I fired everything at you, and you fought everything at me, and I know I fared well, better than you did, but it was okay. Now what?
Yeah. It's like, well, what do you do now? Wave at them?
Angrily.
Well, and honestly, the one thing I also discovered that missiles are very deadly. I mean, they are. You don't need to throw a lot of missiles. I mean, we were really doing overkill. I mean, we'd launch a volley of, I think the strike could have, 10 missiles in the strike. And you really only need, maybe 2, 3, 4 missiles to sink a ship, if that.
Well, that was the whole thing. You basically, you damaged the ship. It was combat ineffective. It may not have sank under the waves, but that was the thing that Steve was really going over with.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no disrupted, there's no reduced. You're either
and
effective or not.
You take an example, take a look at historical, like when the Stark got hit. And I had a buddy of mine who was on the Stark when she got hit. She took one hit up forward. She didn't sink, but she was basically out of action for I think it was 36 hours while they fought the fire. I mean, she couldn't do nothing. And so it's not like when a ship is quote unquote sunk in this game, it's not really sunk. It's just rendered combat ineffective. So every time a ship is destroyed in the game, it doesn't mean the hull has gone to the bottom. It's just in the time frame of this game, it is no longer going to give you anything. So,
can you put that picture back up again? There's one thing I wanted to comment on.
Oh, I normally take bribes for that type of stuff, but hold on.
More bribes. It never ends. So the black number in the white circle is movement, just like in World War 85 ground game. You'll notice the very high numbers for the bears and the backfires and the maze and even the foxbat. So you've got, on the bear in the upper left there, 26 hexes. It flies. If you're anywhere nearby and they know where you are and you're detected, that guy's coming out from the USSR to get you.
Yes, and he's got lots of very deadly anti-ship missiles on him usually.
Right. The number in the cloud to the right of the icon on each of these counters is the radar range. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
So he's got 3 hexes of radar range, which, you're like, oh, it's only 3 hexes. Again, 45 nautical mile hexes. It's about 150 nautical miles, rounded up. So he can sit there, if he's not attacking you, then he can sit there and he can watch you as you approach until something that's ready to take you on can take you on. So it really is got all the elements of the fleet games, but it's totally World War 85 flavor. It's fast, it's furious, and it's fun.
Yes,
sure.
Definitely.
I'm really looking forward to this myself.
Okay, I got an update from Nicholas. He says that Keith is a slave driver, but I'm carrying on.
He sent me emails like that.
We know this already, though. So,
basically, he's working on the French translation for World War 85. And he's not going to say when he should be done, but we should have a complete French accurate translation. Those are the keywords are French and accurate. And he says that there's been a lot of activity about Storming the Gap and Blood and Fury in the mainstream French wargaming communities. So we look forward to providing you a French rulebook, a real French rulebook, when the time comes.
And Nicholas will have to get all those Frenchmen to vote.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he's already had those guys tapped. Okay, so to recap, the guys, we've been on almost for 2 hours and 9 minutes. Okay, is we have exactly looking at the clock 1 day and 8 hours left. Okay, there's 869 backers. We want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And it just it kind of perks us up to do the next thing, honestly.
Yep.
Point blank, like we said, the ship has already been docked for a couple of days. I know the container's been offloaded, and we don't know though if it's left the port or not on the truck or train, but it's going to be sooner than later, so that's going to be coming. We will be shutting down any pre-orders come Monday. Okay, so if you want that or you're thinking about it, now's your time. And here's the bit of harvest, as we said before. The prototypes are on its way, as well as the flight stands prototypes for Blood and Fury, and we should have those either late this week or sometime next week. There's not any other news.
Nope.
Okay. Oh, I have one more for you. Sometime in the next week or two, we should have Day of Heroes out for Lockwood Tactical Digital.
Ah, good.
Oh, for digital?
Yeah.
Mhm, digital.
Right.
Cool.
All right. Well, guys, do we have any other last-minute questions? I hope not, but if you do, now's the chance to ask.
Otherwise, you're just going to have to ping me and Jeff, and we'll answer.
Well,
We try to answer very quickly.
Question number. If you have any real questions, anything else?
No rule questions are allowed. It's done. The rules are done.
Thank you,
Woohoo!
Pennsylvania.
127.
And hey, if you have any questions that come up after the thing, of course, post it in the comment section on the Gamefound page. A lot of guys can answer questions, as well as Keith and Jeff, on our Facebook group for World War 85. And of course, we can get you on Board Game Geek. We don't peruse that as much, just simply because I play recon unit for Keith, basically. I go out there.
He feeds me links, and I'm like,
I put the question, I was like, oh, that's a Keith one, man. And off it goes. And then if it comes up, sometimes it's similar to Jeff, or sometimes it's to both of them, because I ain't really sure who it even goes to sometimes. But we do try to get all your questions answered, and we thank you.
Even if it's I don't know,
Right.
what is an answer?
I don't know is an answer, not a welcome answer, but an answer nevertheless.
All right.
Okay, guys. Anything else? Any one of you guys want to add in here?
I just want to thank everybody for their support on this. It's really amazing, and I really hope you guys enjoy Blood and Fury as much as we have, developing it. And there you go. Bob's your uncle.
And don't forget, sometime tomorrow, Monday night or Tuesday morning, you should see a poll there on what game you think you would like to have afterwards. And I can't think of anything else we may have. So I guess it's time for that famous end of music and the wave, guys. Okay, wave. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, that is all you have for this episode. Keep gaming, and may God bless you and keep you until next time. On the air is a Lock and Load Publishing production.